Delighted you're here. It's awesome to be looking out the back window with this bright sunshine. We had a whole morning of just beautiful pouring rain that all of our gardens needed. And a few minutes ago, the sun came out bright, looking at two gorgeous sunflowers out the back window. So rock and roll. Morning in the garden was good, in the rain and a raincoat. Anyway, now we get to play with the principles of why am I doing this to myself again? And the first century Aramaic forgiveness process. And actually, one of the thoughts I had this morning, and Jeannie, I meant to mention it to you, but I didn't. We have a young lady that wrote a song, "We All Choose," and then we also have the song that we use on the show, written by a young lady out in California. But I've been thinking I'd like to find someone who can co-write, or actually the words I don't really need, but the music song that puts the principles of breath and the presence of love into a catchy tune. So the main thing would be find someone who can do the tune. I've done songwriting before, that's not a big deal, but that can put these ideas into something that will really help to stick in people's minds. I was thinking about calling the gal, Jeannie, that wrote "We All Choose," which is an awesome piece of music if you haven't heard it. And so anyway, if you're a songwriter or musician that might help put together something that would work in that direction, of course I'd like the songwriting to belong to Mind, Heart, and Being so that it supports the work. But music is just so powerful, getting into people's minds, getting information into recall. And so, anyway, if you're out there and you're in that field and you'd like to support us, like to be part of that, what I'm thinking is that I'd be willing to offer for someone who can come up with something that would really work in that regard, something catchy and easy. I'd like to offer an exchange of a quantum still point, 3-day intensive. So just finished doing one yesterday with, and it's the first time that I've done a second session. Actually, the first gentleman who I did the first quantum still point session with back about 4 months ago, came back to do another session and just had some awesome shifts.
He's on the switchboard.
Oh, well, let's see if the young man wants to put his hand up.
Okay, Michael, your microphone's on. The other Michael.
Both Michaels. Hey there, Michael. How are you, sir?
Can you hear me?
You're loud and clear.
Oh, great. Well, I came on and came off because we had having torrential rains. It seems it's following me. Wherever I'm going here. Wow, I wonder what that.
Oh, really? Well, you probably just need a good.
Yeah,
you probably just need a good cleanse. We've got beautiful, bright sunshine right now. You left too soon.
Go. That's a little more manageable now, so we'll give it a whirl.
Cool. Awesome. So how do you be? What's on your mind? What thoughts do you have to report? Any new levels of experience, or maybe share the whole story of the last two sessions? The one piece that you came out with in our second day, where you felt a relief of restriction in your breath, where you're breathing about 60% easier, is a pretty profound result. But anything else to share? Any questions that have come up since you hit the road? Michael was here for the last 3 days and left this morning. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Michael.
Yes, thank you. Well, the breathing part was absolutely amazing, and still feeling much easier breathing today. And yesterday I also noticed that my head, which for those listening may recall, I've had some challenges with neck and head and headaches and so forth, and much better in that arena. Of course, no headaches, but my head yesterday just was a wonderful lightness to it. I don't know how else to explain that, and it still today it just feels amazing, and going to continue working on the breathing situation, as you explained, Michael, to work on that and continue all that good work. And further than that, really hadn't had a chance to really sit down and think more deeply, but we'll do that in maybe several days, maybe a week, and come back on and give an update.
Well, you did share spontaneously this morning when we talked before you left that you got up this morning and looked in the mirror, and what did you notice?
That is also very true. And again, for those listening, I'm challenged with sphenoid bone being off kilter quite a bit within my cranium, and my glasses would not sit on my face the way I would have liked. And Michael Ryce noticed yesterday, and as he was working on me, he explained to me how things were in a more straight alignment. So today I took a good look very early today, and things were straighter in my appearance, and my glasses were sitting in a much better position. So looking to return and get that possibly a little more straightened around and take it to the next level.
Yeah, and well, one, you know, the conversations we had, Michael, with about breathing and the importance of breathing and what it really means from an ancient scriptural point of view is what inspired me. I assume you heard the first few minutes of my conversation looking for someone to write a song, because I'd like to get a piece of music that really embeds the idea of breathing being really quite literally our best friend. And so thanks for the conversations we had around the breath and the importance of it. And just I want to put together a piece of music on befriending the breath. That might even be the title. So thanks for that inspiration.
That sounds like a fantastic title.
Yeah, that might be a good starting point for it. And so, and you know, if you haven't been on the show before when Michael's talked, this is something that started for him at the age of 8 or 9 when he had a bike accident, went over the front of a bike and broke a couple of teeth. And the decades, too many decades of ensuing trauma and headaches at the rate of, I don't have it in front of me, but what was it, 15 or so headaches a month at a level 7 or 8. And
that's about right. They get pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah, you were saying they're level 7, 8 on a scale of 10. That's pretty intense, yeah.
Yeah.
And then following up a few weeks after that, headaches reduced to 1 in 3 weeks at a level 3 or 4. That's pretty awesome. And I'm going to hold the space that you, in the rest of your eternal life, you will be totally and completely comfortable in your skin, in your head, for eternity. That's done.
Hallelujah there, brother. Thank you. And, you know, back 4 or 5 years ago The headaches were so intense, and they would last 2 to 3 days sometimes. It was just I could understand why people get very desperate in situations like that. Now, I've done some things through the last few years, seeing different practitioners. You know, it came down some. It was some improvement, but nothing like these last several months. And like you say, looking forward now to maybe it's over. Maybe I won't even have we'll hold a wonderful space that won't have any headaches.
I'll hold the space. You've had your last one, and there's nothing but comfort in your brain and in your head and your shoulders and your neck, and you've got things mobilized, and you just keep moving forward. That your natural genetics that are designed to lead toward continuously upgrading your health. That's what's been awakened, and that's what's moving. And of course, the commitment to put the pen to the paper with a worksheet, so that anything that comes up in the way of mind energy that needs to be cleared out, generational patterns, that you're ready to be done with them. So it's pretty awesome.
Yes, it was certainly wonderful to discuss those little, and actually not so little, concerns and questions with you, and looking forward. We've got a good plan, as we discussed, how to carry this forward at home. Looking forward to that, and staying connected, and possibly coming back up. So, got a much better outlook.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to seeing you in October. That's pretty cool. I was just delighted when you just spontaneously said, well, my head's centered on my body. It's like, and, when you think how many decades that kind of trauma's been held, and, most people think of the breath, oh, well, you just breathe and, you do, so what? But it's really the key to it all. And, if you go back into the Aramaic sense of it, Yeshua agreed, because it was a Jewish tradition, to go and be baptized in a river and have water poured on him. But you'll notice that he never poured water on anybody. He never did. He spoke of the importance of water. And yes, toxicity in the system, if we're not hydrated, is hard to move. So that's definitely a necessity. But you'll notice that what they spoke about his baptism, and the idea, remembering that the word sin is an archery term that simply means off the mark, baptism for the forgiveness of sin. And the word forgive doesn't mean let somebody else off the hook, but rather the removal. So if, in fact, when we go back to the Aramaic, we find that the Aramaic creation story doesn't say God sent out his spirit. It says the Creator sent out his breath, ruka de kudsha, and breath for the forgiveness of sins. That it is literally, when people hold their breath, it's the way they acquire a past about something. It's the way they lock trauma, sin, energies that are off the mark into tissue that don't belong in tissue. And when you restore the breath, you do that for the forgiveness of sin, for the removal. I mean, literally, if you think of the breath, think about, you've got a puddle of water, and, if it's freezing cold or right at zero, that puddle of water is going to sit there for a long, long time. But if you turn the temperature up to 80 and the sun's pouring on that puddle of water, there's a transmutation in that puddle, disappears. And sun is to, I hadn't thought of this little tongue twister, but sun is to sin breath is to sin in a very, and I'm talking about nothing to do with religion, nothing to do with churchianity, nothing to do with Sunday morning, just where you live. That breath, ruka de kudsha, is to sin what sun is to water. It burns it off. I don't care what the trauma is. I don't care how old it is. I don't care how deep it is genetically. You burn it off. it's gone. And that's the practicality of it. But unfortunately, men have found ways to turn it into something else and some sort of mystical sort of thing where the basic tenet for so many people, what they've been told is, well, you're just a hopeless, helpless sinner. There's no such thing as a sinner. Do we all engage in energies that are off the mark? Absolutely. Does that make us sinners? No, that's not our identity. We are literally offspring of the Creator, made in the image and likeness of love. That's what needs to be rediscovered. And that kind of is the story in a nutshell. And that's where the resolution is. Now, having gone back to some of my earliest medical training half century ago and bringing it into the fray, helps to open the structure to take the ability to accelerate the process so that energies that have been locked down perhaps for generations can be moved relatively quickly. And so that's what the whole quantum still point process is about.
Well, it certainly is amazing, and the changes that one can feel, and in my case, physically and visually notice, just miraculous. Just miraculous.
Yeah, actually, I kind of wish we had done some measurements on your structure. Got some pictures, but some actual measurements would have been pretty cool because you got changes that theoretically can't be made after a structure has been around the sun for several decades. But fortunately, we're on track. So it was awesome to work with you again.
Well, same on my end, Michael, and I noticed, and I'll share that I have had practitioners in the past that, would be termed craniosacral, and that term meaning they work on the head, neck area, and would I get some relief? Yes, but again, nothing like what I experienced the last few days with you. So that's, it's clearly a difference what you are practicing.
Well, a component that I was going to say, a component that can't be underestimated is as you paid attention to where there was resistance in your structure to energy moving and were able to open that resistance, that literally cranks the energy flow up through the system, and that's what flushes out what doesn't belong.
Yes, it's clearly.
So, in Aramaic, again, getting back to the reality of it, in Aramaic, the word Satan has nothing to do with the dude with the red suit, a tail, and a pitchfork, as the Greeks have told us, and churchianity's told us. The word Satan means the resistor, one who misleads. And when I start noticing where in my structure there's resistance, and I can open and let go of that resistance, then whatever has literally commandeered my energy system, perhaps for eons of time through the generations, can be undone in minutes. That's what forgiveness is.
Yes, and like we had in discussion, and you said many times on the show, when one considers the number of relatives that have contributed to our present DNA we're carrying around in the structure on the planet right now, it boggles my mind. And it is an immense number. It's hard to really think about all the possibilities there.
It is. Quite true. Well, glad you got your head on straight.
Yes, and appreciation for that assistance again. It's feeling wonderful. Even in the rain today, the pouring rain, as I was leading, and generally that's somewhat bothersome to me with the sinus challenges I've had. So I recalled that today also. Just
So with all the
like
humidity
the sun,
and
like
the
the sun
pouring
was
rain
shining,
that you were
couldn't tell the
packing.
difference.
Oh, that's awesome. That's that's another major piece of the puzzle then.
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous.
Yes, that's
Cool.
really neat. So we'll definitely make some notes and process the next several days and have another discussion. And
Cool.
Looking forward to seeing the write-up that you have about this whole process, and reviewing the experience as I'm reading it again, and that'll be quite amazing in itself.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll be holding the space that you have a real blast with that next 1,000 worksheets you're about to do, and rock on.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So.
Cool. Well, any other thoughts for you, sir?
Yes, I'd like to continue where we left off a week ago Friday.
Okay.
I was in the rainstorm heading east, and in review, and I want to say that our perception is really the movie in our minds. Would that be?
Yeah, it is a construct out of carbon-based memory from the past. Yes.
From the past. And reviewing my notes here, if I glance at them quick, when we cancel the goals, then we're able to collapse the inappropriate perceptions.
Correct.
Okay? So what I really would like to comprehend more on this is our reality, what we're seeing is the movie in our minds. That's our reality as we, quote, look out at the world.
Yes.
Okay? So I'd like
and it's unique to us.
Unique to us. Which, like I've said many times this weekend, these last 2 days, working on wrapping my mind around that. Okay. So we've got several people, you said this on the show. I remember my dad in my younger years mentioning similar things. I look back, he passed unfortunately very young. But I look back and wonder what he really knew. I was a little boy. But he would tell me that at an accident site, people would not always agree on what they're seeing. And I know that you have mentioned that. So where I'd like to go is, what would you review with me and all of us, what truly is actuality as you know it?
Well, I don't have a clue.
No?
It's
And
not,
where I'm
I
going
mean,
with that is I ponder it and I think, okay, well, we're at this accident site and most people have a different perception. So what is actuality? What's really happening in these circumstances?
well, of course, we'll grin as I remind you once again that the number one pseudo solution of the non-being mind is to try to figure it out. And you can't figure it out, but the best way I could express it, the best way I could that it would make sense for me, is let's look at that Harvard research we've talked about so many times, where they determined that in a time frame, they've got people hooked up to electrodes and they're measuring brain cell firings. In a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity in the brain. They determined that the maximum number of bits of data that one could be aware of, that is, the data that built what we call perception, was 9 bits. So if you think of the mind as a reducing valve, we got 10,000 brain cells firing, and you get to see 9 bits of data. Do you suppose and let's metaphorically, not necessarily that it's absolutely literal, because the actual laboratory stats were 7 plus or minus 2, so as many as 9, as few as 5 bits of data. The person with 5 bits of data, we would say they're mentally slow. The person with 9 bits of data, we'd say they're pretty sharp, they're pretty brilliant. But do you suppose that we can cram what 10,000 brain cells contain into the 9-bit mind? Good luck. And then it's been estimated, and I don't know that anybody's ever even conceived of, really understood the difference between reality and actuality. I actually thank a physicist friend of mine. I was in a conference. I used to speak at a conference called Global Science. I used to keynote there, and this goes back about 40 years ago, and I did my keynote address, and there was another gentleman there named Bob Beck. Some people are familiar with Bob's name. He's passed now. But that was my first introduction to Bob Beck, who was a genius in the world of electronics and physics. He actually talked about, in a different context, but talked about reality and actuality. And that was like, they're the words I've been looking for the decade or so that I'd been working on this work up to that point. After his presentation, I walked up to Bob, shook his hand, and said thank you, and handed him a $50 bill. And Bob looked at me like, what are you giving me this for? So he just gave me one of the keys of the work that I do. Thank you. And I explained to him the meaning of reality and actuality for me. And Bob, who was just the sweetest guy, stood there on the verge of tears. And he's like, nobody's ever actually stepped up and said thank you and actually given me some, paid me for giving them an idea. So it's a very sweet memory for me, and we became very good friends. We actually traveled to Hawaii a time or two together and did some work back in the early days of this work. Unfortunately, he's left his body now. But he's the one who came up with that idea, and then applying that's not something that comes out of that psychological research of the 9 bits of data versus 10,000 brain cells firing. But it's been estimated in that time frame, and it's about a 25th of a second. That was what was going on in the laboratory. 25th of a second, 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity, maximum of 9. And it's been estimated that perhaps, this is only a perhaps, there are 20 trillion bits of data in the actuality in that same time frame. So what do I have to say about actuality? Not much. It is the energy field in which we live, move, and have our being. It's unfathomable. I think we're like the mosquito trying to understand a forest, trying to fit, if you think of a mosquito, imagine a mosquito trying to understand what you gathered in understanding in the last 3 days of quantum still point. What chance do you suppose a mosquito's got? Well, I would say we're like a mosquito landing on actuality when we try to comprehend it. My best observation would be to spend time each day where you're in the habit of surrendering to actuality, surrendering to the active presence of love, and let it teach you rather than try to figure it out, because in a billion years, we'll never figure it out. Use forgiveness to clear the hostility and fear-based corrupt data in the mind, and then spend time each day with the active presence of love, asking it to teach you. And
that's beautiful.
What could my 9-bit mind say about a 20 trillion bit world? Not much. So that would be my input in that regard.
Yeah, I like it. I just process. We look at the world, what's going on or what's not going on, and it's told that collectively humanity is creating. We create our world, and collectively humanity is creating what we're seeing on a national and world level. Is that a correct comprehension?
That would be correct. That would be my take.
So it's just interesting as I ponder all this, and again, I don't kind of wonder about figuring it out, and I realize we're not going to figure it out. I get the mosquito correlation there, but I do wonder collectively where we're going and how that really the collective part fits into the thought that you've presented many times on critical mass.
Yeah, and again, if you remember the definition of the breath from the Aramaic, ruka de kudsha, a feminine elemental force that undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. We're a whole lot better being in the breath, and I'll just offer that, the important openings and understandings in this work haven't come from my brain sitting and trying to figure it out. They've come from breathing and being willing to be taught and developing the ability to listen, to shut the mind up and listen. And that's where the most important pieces come from.
Yes, and I certainly can comprehend that also to a vast degree. It's much more peaceful that way.
Yeah, big load off.
Yeah, for certain.
You go back to the scriptures, and the scriptures say the mind of man has not yet conceived of what lies in store. It's like we don't have a clue. How do you put, if the 20 trillion bit world estimate is accurate, how do you start to put a 20 trillion bit world into a 9-bit mind? Not going to happen. However, if we're willing to be taught, and Ruka the Kucha is obviously available, and we'll listen, then we're going to be giving it everything that we need in order to complete the journey. Unless the mind has got a different idea, and then the mind, of course, can come up with a perception of, well, but, if I can't fight hard enough, or, well, if I, and all the stories the mind's got about what's going to make life better. Listening is the most important piece of the puzzle, I'd say.
That sounds like a good plan, and I'm, processing as you're speaking. If we are doing that as a collective body, that's certainly going to lead us in a better way. lead us all.
I think you're right. Because what perception does is perception always makes up a world like the world that resides within. And most people residing in a conflict-ridden past, generations of unresolved suffering and pain and trauma and fear, the only thing that thing can do is make up more like itself. It's going to make, it's going to massage its data to look like itself, because that's the only data it's got to work with. So the active application of forgiveness to remove purposely, consciously, the energy patterns based in hostility or fear, no matter how justified our mind makes it, the mind can so quickly and so easily go, yeah, well, yes, the reason I'm enraged is because you, and gee, I got a whole picture that proves that you're the cause of my rage. But sooner they got to admit it's my rage, or my defensiveness, or my belief in, or whatever it is. So applying forgiveness weakens and collapses the energy fields, that come from brain cells that do nothing but replicate the past, the mind of man, and when you can quell the past, the hostility and fear-based mind and its perceptions that always justify. One of the things that I discovered a long time ago is that what the mind does is once it has what it considers to be a skill or a defense mechanism or something that works for it, like let's say a person who's addicted to rage has this skill of rage, and as a creator, once they go, oh, this rage is good, it protects me, that person will spend the rest of their lives creating circumstances which demand that the wonderful skill of rage that it has becomes useful. And its creatorship is just blown away, just destroyed over nothing. Once the mind discovers a skill, it will hallucinate every reason under the sun to keep that skill, because that skill is its own creation, and it sees nothing but beauty and wonderment and usefulness in that. And so it will make up scenarios. I mean, have you ever had anybody make up a scenario that allowed them to use a skill like maybe condemnation or rage or what have you? Have you ever watched anyone with that skill come to you with a reality that they believed was about you and told you how and why you were responsible for their rage, and then dumped it on you like that was really true? Well, you stood there and scratched your head and said, what the hell are you talking about? The aberrant creations of the non-being mind, to the non-being mind, are beautiful, wonderful things, no matter how insane they are.
Michael, I didn't catch that last point. I didn't follow it.
Yeah, that if you are the creator of a skill, and of course you hold yourself to be perfect, like the creator, which if you get down to it, most people believe that's where they live. I'm right, you're wrong. It's settled, why argue? So if out of that state I create for myself a skill, I will see that skill, in this case rage, as perfect and a beautiful thing. And I will hallucinate circumstance after circumstance after circumstance that demands that skill. because I'm so proud of it and I get to use it. And my offering would be that we need a different measuring stick than, oh, look how great this skill is. We need a different set of principles. We need a different set of mind so that we only see beauty in that which is beautiful rather than beauty in the things we make and think are perfect because we made them. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm probably a little bit more there, yes. Thank you. Well, appreciate the thoughts and explanation, and maybe could request a Jeannie to put your thought about sin and the sun in the notes. I can check it out when I get back the next day or so.
For sure.
Yeah, that'd be neat to review. Sounds like that'd be a nice poster. Reminder.
Well, let's see what we can come up with.
Okay. What was Bob Beck when he was, I know you may have said it, what field was he in?
He was in the field of electronics and physics, and he applied it in healing. If you've ever heard of Hulda Clark.
Yes, very much.
Hulda Clark was a cancer researcher. Bob Beck
Yes.
designed the zapper machine that she used.
What a connection.
Yeah.
What a connection. That is amazing. Okay. It's been a while since I looked at Hilda Clark's work, so that'll be another good review.
Yeah, Bob was one of the people she worked with. Say again?
Is Hilda Clark still with us on this plane, or?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I've looked at her work a long while ago, years ago, and have not really in any recent history done so.
Yeah, I haven't heard of her work in 20 years, so I don't know whether she's still around or not.
Interesting.
Jeannie is probably looking online as we speak.
Say again, please.
I say Jeannie is probably looking online as we speak.
Jeannie is on top of it. Anything else from your end before I close out anyway?
Actually, I'm looking for a quote from A Course in Miracles, and I'm not finding it.
In reference to the actuality or some other topic?
So in a section on Chapter 17, Forgiveness and Healing, Section 3 is called The Forgiven World. And just give me 1 second here. So paragraph 11, the real world So that would be actuality. The Course says, is attained simply by complete forgiveness of the old. The world you see without forgiveness. The great transformer of perception will undertake with you the careful searching of the mind that made this world. That is, they're talking about the world of perception. The great transformer of perception will undertake with you the careful searching of the mind that made this world and uncover to you the seeming reasons for your making it. In the light of real reason that he brings as you follow him, he will show you, talking here, actually the Course talks about Ruka Dekucha in the male sense, but it's actually female in Aramaic. He will show you that there is no reason here at all, that Ruka Dekucha's reason touches grows alive with beauty. And what seemed ugly in the darkness of your lack of reason is suddenly released to loveliness. Not even what the Son of the Creator made in insanity could be without a hidden spark of beauty that gentleness could release. All this beauty will rise to bless your sight as you look upon the world with forgiving eyes. For forgiveness literally transforms vision and lets you see the actuality, reaching quietly and gently across chaos, removing all illusions that had twisted your perception and fixed it on the past. The smallest leaf becomes a thing of wonder, and a blade of grass a sign of the Creator's perfection. From the forgiven world, the son or daughter of the Creator is lifted easily into his or her home. And there he or she knows that he or she have always rested there in peace. This is the end of dreams. The closing of a dream that has no meaning. And then the Course goes on in this particular section to say, so now how much do you want it? And, most people are addicted to the world of perception. So they say they want it, but they don't really want it. What they want is to be right.
That was beautiful, Michael. Thank you for sharing that. And again, I would like to ask a request of Jeannie to put that the documentation for that in the notes. Would be most grateful. Something certainly I need to look over several more times.
Cool. There's a workbook lesson in the Course. We've got a couple of minutes left. Let me just look at this one.
Okay.
So, workbook lesson 23. The focal point of the lesson is, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. The idea for today contains the only way out of fear that will ever succeed. Nothing else will work. Everything else is meaningless. But this way cannot fail. Every thought you have makes up some segment of the world you see. It is with your thoughts, then, that we must work if your perception of the world is to be changed. If the cause of the world you see is attack thoughts, you must learn that it is these thoughts which you do not want. There is no point in lamenting the world. There is no point in trying to change the world. It is incapable of change because it is merely an effect. And note that here the Course is talking about the world of perception. The only place the Course aims forgiveness at is at the world of perception. So the world you see is incapable of change because it is merely an effect. But there is indeed a point in changing your thought about the world. For here you are changing cause. The effect will change automatically. The world you see is a vengeful world, and everything in it is a symbol of vengeance. Each of your perceptions of external reality is a pictorial representation of your own attack thoughts. One can well ask if this can be called seeing. Is not fantasy a better word for such a process, and hallucination a more appropriate term for the result? You see the world that you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. This is what real salvation means. For where is the world you see when its cause is gone? Vision already holds a replacement for everything you think you see now. Loveliness can light your images and so transform them so that you will be the presence of love with them, even though you thought they were made of hate. For you will not be making them alone. The idea for today introduces the thought that you are not trapped in the world you see because its cause can be changed. This change requires first that the cause be identified and then let go so that it can be replaced. The first two steps in this process require your cooperation. The final one does not. Your images have already been replaced. By taking the first two steps, you will see that this is so. Besides using it throughout the day as the need arises, 5 practice periods are required for applying today's idea. As you look about you, repeat the idea slowly to yourself first, and then close your eyes and devote about a minute to searching your mind for as many attack thoughts as occur to you. As each one crosses your mind, say to yourself, I can escape from the world I see by giving up my attack thoughts about. So it might be about men. It might be giving up my attack thoughts about women, giving up my attack thoughts about politics, giving my attack thoughts about enemies, giving up my attack thoughts about Republicans, giving up my attack thoughts about Democrats, giving up my attack thoughts about liberals, giving my attack thoughts about conservatives, whatever I've got. And so the instruction is, hold each attack thought in mind as you say, I can escape the world I see by giving up my attack thoughts about, and then dismiss that thought and go on to the next. In those practice periods, be sure to include both your thoughts of attacking and of being attacked. Their effects are exactly the same because they are exactly the same. You do not recognize this yet, and you are asked at this time only to treat them the same in today's practice periods. We are still at the stage of identifying the cause of the world you see. When you finally learn that attack thoughts and being attacked are not different, then you will be ready to let the cause go. And one of the videos in this context, if this, is resonating for you, whoever, happens to be listening, you might go to our YouTube channel. And to do that, if you just go to YouTube and type in Michael Ryce, Michaelryce, you'll be on our channel, and then look for the lesson, What is the World? So in the context of this, listen to that lesson, What is the World? Because that's probably one of the most important lessons in the Course in Miracles and one of the least understood, the most misunderstood. And the crux of that lesson is right in the opening paragraph of that lesson. Again, the lesson is, what is the world? And what the first paragraph says is, the world was made by you as an attack on God. It will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. Think not you made the world. Illusions, yes. But what is true in heaven and earth is beyond your naming. Is a world made up by you to take the place of what the Creator gave you in creation. And forgiveness has no other purpose than the collapsing of that world we made up out of our attack thoughts. The world we see is a product of what's firing in carbon-based memory in response to a goal. When I recognize that and I cancel the goal that drives that whole process in me, then I'm collapsing those perceptual constructs. And in so doing, I'm freed of them. So I hope that all made sense. It went by rather quickly. Our time is up. However, of course, within a few minutes, if you want to go back and listen, the archive will be available. You can just go to our website and click on the microphone at whyagain.org. Whyagain.org is our website. Click on the microphone and just drive down through the links until you get to today's date. And you'll be able to listen to the show again. Hope it makes sense. Michael, thanks for your questions. Awesome the work you did this week. And safe travels back to Texas.
Thank you both much. I'm looking forward to hearing all this again and reviewing it. Much appreciation to you both.
Okay, take care. Blessings.